Howdy, folks. Happy Thursday. We have a trade. We will be discussing that at length because it's not a mega deal. It's probably a necessary deal for the Maple Leafs, and we know that everybody enjoys when we talk ad nauseum about the Maple Leafs. So you're going to get your fill today. But Russ, let's start with the pre-show.
So let's go back to the Mookie Betts deal because there's a funny phenomenon going on with Red Sox fans. They're all a lot of them are minor birding. The ones who don't really get it, and I don't believe the ones that are saying this get it, they're all like, well, the Red Sox offered him 10 years at $300 million and he turned us down. Okay. That is such a lousy offer for this player and I'll prove it to you. That would put him 7th in the league in AAV. 7th. He is better than that. He had 4 Gold Gloves. He had 342 years ago. He's almost a 2-time MVP. Like, to say that is like saying the same thing to Mike Trout. Again, yesterday I was brought up. Somebody brought up, well, who could possibly be paid for 12 years? Which again, I don't know if he's asking for 12 years.
Right.
Who could be paid for that and possibly live out that contract? And I said, I don't know. Wayne Gretzky, Mike Trout. You know, I came up with a bunch of players. I mean, Wayne Gretzky's first contract was 10 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are players that can live up to that.
Well, it's funny because I saw Dan Shaughnessy from the Boston Globe on one of the New York talk shows, and he was talking about the whole deal and the furor that is going on in Boston. And one of the things is they're afraid that Betts, being sort of a slight player, not like a real big built guy like a Trout, is going to go the way of Andrew McCutchen. Is going to be like he's at a top level type player, but he will break down quicker because he's a smaller player. And I mean, maybe there's some truth in that, but the thing is, this was a calculated move. They were not going to sign him. They were not going to sign him to what he would get in free agency. Players get overpaid in free agency, and they saw the opportunity to piggyback that pig of a David Price deal on top of a year of Mookie Betts and getting rid of $40 million in payroll. It's simply that, and it's like all this. I mean, the Red Sox. I mean, they've had their run. I'm not saying it's over with because they still have a lot of talent, but this was a cost cutting move. And
but then don't act as a fan. The team gave him a bona fide offer because they didn't.
Right. I mean, right. Exactly. It's like saying the Islander. It's like saying the Ottawa Senators gave Erik Karlsson a bona fide offer. They offered him an 8-year max. I think it was $9 million. I'm pretty sure it was. And of course, he wasn't going to stay in that clown car of an organization after all the things that had happened to him. He wasn't going to stay working for Eugene Melnyk. He wanted out. They knew he would reject it, and then they could say, "Oh, he rejected it, so we had to make a deal." Oh, great. Okay. Well, but you didn't. I don't think you were operating, in sort of in good faith, and I don't think the Red Sox were either. The Red Sox wanted to move on. They didn't want to pay him. They wanted to get the most value they could. I don't know how good Verdugo is going to be or the pitcher they got from Minnesota, but there obviously is going to be a reset with them. They probably won't get close to winning the division. They could still win a wild card, but I don't know.
All right, so wait. I'm going to also attack Shaughnessy and Tony Kornheiser on ESPN because I like Tony Kornheiser. He does some good things on his show. But they both brought up the 5'9" thing. Okay, let's dispel that for a minute. In the NFL, most defensive backs are 5'9" and 180 pounds. They are. So now, because a center fielder is 5'9", 180, and he's not Lenny Dykstra, he's not crashing into the wall every 5 minutes. What makes me believe he's going to break down? Because of Dustin Pedroia? I mean, that's a different guy, and a position player is way different because you got players sliding into you.
Well,
garbage take. It's a garbage take.
Shaughnessy didn't say Pedroia. He specified. And Pedroia is what, 37? I mean,
right. But my point is, what did he specify? Go ahead. He
specified Andrew McCutchen, who was a player of a similar build, who, when he was with Pittsburgh, was arguably an MVP caliber outfielder.
Still wasn't at the level that Betts.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. But he was at a higher level. He was.
It's a bad take in this day and age. If you're now going to tell me, I looked it up. Phil Rizzuto played over 1,300 games. He was 5'6".
Right.
We're not talking about someone who's 5'6".
Right. But what they're saying is, and I don't agree.
And I'm 5'9", so F those guys.
What they're saying is they think the bigger, stronger player can last longer, and we know that's
not true.
Right, we know that's not the case because we've seen bigger, stronger players have concussion issues in the NHL, have pulled muscle issues like J.J. Watt.
Giancarlo Stanton's longevity. Look.
Yeah, exactly. And
as an example, he's a big, strong guy, right?
Yeah, and the Yankees are paying him $28, $29 million a year.
Barry Beck with the Rangers didn't last as long as everybody would thought, and he was a huge, strong guy.
Now, was it shoulder or concussion with him?
Shoulder.
Okay. Yeah, so
it's a complete garbage take. Like, to say that, it's just like it's not even based on fact. Like,
and
show me facts where you have 5 or 6 top players that are close to his ability, that were that size and weight, that didn't last more than 6 years, that were comparable.
Yeah.
Show me it.
And I'm waiting for the lawyer for the family of Shoeless Joe Jackson to contact the Major League.
So let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah.
The first thing I was ever taught in life that I can remember was 2 wrongs don't make a right. And basically, not everything is the same, right? My dad always said, just because you're looking at something one way, it doesn't mean that's the same way for everybody else, right? And so how does Pete Rose look at this situation and even think it's the same? Like, come on, man.
Well, because he's saying, well, they got suspended for a year and it was cheating, and I got suspended for life and it was cheating. No, the Astros and maybe the Red Sox are going to be fined and suspended and penalized for rules that were on the book for 2 years.
How many decades did Pete Rose lie about it?
Right, and my point was, Pete Rose violated rules of the game that had been in place for 80 years.
Yeah.
That the greatest scandal in baseball history
that
almost ruined the sport. If it wasn't for Babe Ruth, was do not gamble, do not consort with gamblers, avoid them like the plague, and if you are gambling, you are done. So I don't know.
And here's the other thing: in this day and age, we know Pete Rose never stopped gambling. Now it's only legal. He was gambling the whole time. He would be on these gambling trains for the Kentucky Derby. He's been selling himself as a gambler the whole time. So why in the world would Major League Baseball want him to get close to the game anyhow?
I mean,
when he has that reputation.
I mean, Pete, you got it pretty good. You sit outside the city limits of Cooperstown and you sell your autograph to any Tom, Dick, or Harry who wants it now. It's probably the market is so much soaked with Pete Rose autographs. I don't know why the hell they do.
Rose or Bob Feller. It's hard to say who signed more, but he made plenty of money and he's making plenty of money. This has nothing to do with that. And if you want to tell me there are low character people in the Hall of Fame, I'll agree with you. But this guy had a chance to come clean how many times? And then the last part is, with the Wilpon thing.
Oh, yes.
So, now it's come out that Rob Manfred said, yeah, it doesn't look like there's going to be a transaction. Okay. So now that we hear that from the commissioner, let's go back and review why does Major League Baseball let the Mets operate the way they do? They did bring in Sandy Alderson to correct the situation, and he did correct it to some degree. Why did they do that? Because Bud Selig was friends with Fred Wilpon, and Bud Selig still has influence in the league. And basically, Rob Manfred is Bud Selig's guy, and Rob Manfred is not going to go against something Bud Selig didn't want to go against on a big market team. They're not going to oust the Wilpons. They will not.
Fred Wilpon is one of his bosses. He's an owner. He's the boss of he's an owner in the biggest media market in the world.
So for the fans and media people that are just like, well, Major League Baseball has to kick him out, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, just like the NBA commissioner has to kick out James Dolan. It only happens with bad New York owners.
The only reason John McCourt got kicked out in LA was because of a divorce. And all of a sudden, they didn't know what to do with the team and the assets.
Frank McCourt, right?
Frank McCourt,
and Donald Sterling only got kicked out because he was a racist pig.
Right.
So anyway, just one quick thing. I wish. Now, I believe the NBA trade deadline is 3 p.m.
Yes.
I don't care about the NBA. I'm not a big NBA fan, but I do.
And they don't care about you.
And they don't care about me either. Yes, I'm hurt by that. But this is the thing. I do like these trades that they make. I am envious.
4-player trades.
Yeah, 4-team, 7-player trades with conditional picks and everything going all over the place. I love that stuff. I wish that stuff was happening in the NHL. But
I don't, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because there's a downside and a seedy side to it. And this is where it hurts players, especially non-established, non-star players.
Right.
So as an example, the 76ers yesterday made a trade, right? And they got Glenn Robinson the third. Like, I didn't even know there was a Glenn Robinson the second. I only knew the regular Glenn Robinson. But anyhow, that's me. They make this trade, and all of a sudden, 2 guys who are on the Sixers roster, Trey Burke and another guy, and I've interviewed Trey Burke, he's a good guy, aren't at shoot-around anymore. Well, why not? Well, because they're just going to get rid of them. That's it.
They're going to waive them, yeah.
They're going to waive them. That is the problem with that. You don't want NHL players to all of a sudden wake up the day after the trade deadline and there's like 10 players now that no longer have a job and they're just out there in the ether. That's not good. And I think the NBA has basically done that because they know that the top 2% run the league as far as their stars, right? The NHL doesn't operate that way, and I'm glad it doesn't.
Yeah, guys in the chat, yes, 3rd day in a row, no gray, kiss my butt.
Mike is now doing everything he can to not wear gray. So you people have now affected the way Mike dresses every day. Good job.
You've affected the balance of the universe by making me not wear gray.
Right, because that's what's happened now. Now you are going out of your way to not wear it.
Hello, Hockey World. Today is Thursday, February 6th, 2020.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Okay, a game between our 2 clubs, the 2 clubs that we follow, last night went predictably because the Maple Leafs, due to the injury to Frederik Andersen, were forced to play Michael Hutchinson. And it was in part because of Michael Hutchinson, but also in part due to the flaws in the Toronto Maple Leafs that they lost 5-3 to the Rangers. Not taking anything away from the Rangers. I thought Igor Shesterkin played really well. We can talk about the game, but right after the game, literally I'd say about 20 minutes after the game, it came out that the Leafs had traded Trevor Moore and a couple draft picks for a veteran backup, Jack Campbell, and veteran forward Kyle Clifford. Now, the Trevor Moore, he won a Calder Cup with the Marlies. He's had a couple cups of coffee with the Leafs. He's had some injuries this year. I like him as a player. He was somebody they signed out of the University of Denver. He was a developmental guy. He worked his butt off to get up to the NHL, and now he goes to the Kings. He's a Southern California native, so that's a good thing for him. I think he's going to get opportunity with them. He's a speedy player. He's a skilled player. I think he could succeed in LA. But the deal was necessary for the Leafs.
Right.
Campbell, who is on a league minimum deal, actually below league minimum because the minimum is $700,000. He had a contract that was under $700,000, so he's making $675,000, and he signed to a 2-year extension.
Right.
So he's under control for 2 more years, which provides them a goaltender to make available in expansion, which can't be understated. And
I'm not sure that's why they did this.
No, I'm not. I'm not sure that's not the reason, but I think that is I'd say a plus.
Okay.
Clifford is a player that the Leafs do not have and needed desperately, which is somebody with a physical edge, somebody with some experience. who can play on that fourth line and maybe play more minutes than a usual fourth liner can play. So I think this is a good deal for both teams. What do you think, Russ?
Well, I mean, for one thing, Jake Muzzin at least still has the ugliest beard on the team, so it's not Clifford. We'll start there. The Jack Campbell thing is interesting because Clifford was right in the way he sold him. Just because Jack Campbell is a backup today doesn't mean he will always be a backup. And it does make you wonder, and makes me wonder, that if Anderson were to falter at some point during this contract that he's still under, would they start to creep in Campbell for more games? And I think if Campbell proves himself, there is a very good chance of that. And so I think that's something else, because not everybody wants a backup for 2.5 years. But the Leafs gladly did it. And they did it partly because they're weak at that position. And look, there's no question they were talking before this.
Right.
But there's also no question in my mind that Dubas decided to push the button on it and really accelerate it. And I think he added a little more cake to it by making sure it was done after that game, because that game proved to him and to the rest of us that Hutchinson can't do it for the long haul for them, even as a backup. And if they lose too many more games like that, they won't make the playoffs. So you have to give them the best chance of making the playoffs. Clifford's Clifford. He's fine. He has now gotten more press in 30 minutes in Toronto than his entire time in LA. So that's good for him and his career.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, it's a good trade. The Leafs still gave up a lot because on that conditional side, we'll see how that all works out. I mean, what's the condition? Does it go to
these are the conditions of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Now Clifford is a UFA at the end of this year. They retained the Kings retained 50% of his $1.6 million salary, so he's an $800,000 cap hit. As I said, Campbell is a $675 cap hit this year, goes up to $165 the next 2 years, which is not, that's backup salary money, so that's right. Reasonable. Moore's under contract for another year at $775,000. The conditional pick, first they traded the third round pick that they got from Ottawa in the Cody Ceci Zaitsev deal. It's a Columbus pick, so more than likely it's going to be in the bottom half of the first round, or the third round, excuse me. And the conditional pick, if Clifford re-signs with the Leafs, or if Campbell wins 6 games and the Leafs make the playoffs, the third round pick, the conditional third round pick in 2021 becomes a second.
And then at that point, that's when it turns into like they gave up a little bit more than I thought.
Right.
But if you make the playoffs, that's what the cost is. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Right. Do I think that they're going to re-sign Clifford? I think they'd like to. I think there's a relationship there. And the funny thing is, I don't think Dubas should be criticized for this, but like a lot of GMs, they like the guys that they know. And Dubas was Kyle Clifford's agent before he became general manager of the Sioux Greyhounds, and he traded for Jack Campbell when he was GM of the Greyhounds, and apparently was an advisor because he was you can't be an agent for a college player, but he was an advisor to a friend of Campbell's for a number of years, so he knew him through that. So the relationship with Campbell and Dubas is long. Right. And so is the relationship with Clifford. So he got 2 players that he knows. Clifford is known as a good teammate in that Kings locker room. He won 2 Stanley Cups. So he provides that some experience. He provides some toughness. And after last night, after seeing one of the only guys on the Leafs Zach Hyman is not a fighter, but he's a guy who will, go in the corners and do the work. He knocked Trouba into the boards, and Trouba, bashed his bugle after the goal.
I was surprised.
I think it was the visor. Right?
Yeah, that it cut into him. Yeah,
it cut into him, and then that always happens. But that's they needed these ads. So from the LA point of view, I think this is an even deal. From the LA point of view, they got futures, they got faster, they got younger. The Leafs got the backup goalie they need. They got a winger that they need. And I also think that the Leafs may not be done, because the one thing that Elliot Friedman talked about and a few other people have talked about, they did not have to give up Kapanen, Janssen, Kerfoot in this deal. And now with the news that came out today, and we'll get off the Leaf page after we just do these updates.
Mm-hmm.
Cody Ceci got hurt late in the third period against the Rangers. They're saying it's an ankle injury. He's going to be out for, quote, a while. And Russ, when you're February 6th and there's 2 months left to go in the season, and if he's out, say, 4 to 6 weeks, that 6 weeks could become 8 very easily.
Oh, sure, and they definitely can't trade him now. I mean, that's obvious.
Right, they can't trade him, and Elliot Friedman reported that they've looked into the possibility of trading Barry or trading Muzzin or trading Ceci at the deadline if they fall way behind. Of trading, selling their rentals. But now, if Ceci is out, and Ceci is out for a long period of time, they could put him on LTIR.
Right.
And bury him for the rest of the year. He still gets paid.
But I think they'll hesitate to do that.
Well, then the other thing that he mentioned, and this could be more likely, is that they don't know the status of Morgan Riley's fractured foot.
This is the one that I think they'll do.
Yes. Riley makes $5 million. Right now that is on IR, not LTIR. He is on LTIR. But if he is, if when they get the medical update next week, if they think the healing is slow and he may not be back by mid-March, that's 2 weeks away from the end of the season. Believe me, they would rather have Morgan Riley back and healthy. But if he isn't going to be 100% by mid-March, then they're going to keep him on LTIR through the rest of the regular season and go out and trade for a defenseman because they have cap room. I
do think there's a very good chance of that happening. 2 questions I think that you really should ask Kyle Dubas next time you see him is, A, has he had recent LASIK surgery? Because this is the second time I've seen him now without glasses. And B, if he hasn't, this is a call to follow-up, Mike, so I'm just letting you know. The follow-up is, if he hasn't had LASIK surgery, does he only wear glasses for reading? I think we need to know this. Nobody in Toronto has ever figured this out, but I'm giving this scoop to you now.
Right. No, I in my interactions with the funny thing is that
he always wears his glasses now for 2 times in a row. I've seen him not with his glasses. Does he have a stylist now? Maybe he does. I don't know.
But the funny thing is that before this trade, it was indicated that Kyle Dubas would not be having any kind of press availability until after the deadline. But once he made the trade,
then you have to.
Yeah, you have to. The other thing is Freddie Anderson. They were very
cagey.
They said he wasn't going to play against Anaheim, but after that, they weren't sure.
I know he's skating, but skating doesn't mean he's going to play.
Right. I think with what they're doing, again, neck injuries can be misdiagnosed as concussions. It's happened before. It'll happen again. I don't know if, so right now they're just looking at the situation here. We're going to be careful. Now we have 2 goaltenders. I don't think they really want to play Michael Hutchinson again, but if they have to, they have back-to-back this weekend, Friday.
I think they'll play him one more game. I do.
Yeah. But, do you play him against Anaheim at home and then, or against Montreal at the Bell Center?
No, I play him at Montreal at the Bell Center because I don't need every Leaf fan booing Michael Hutchinson when he gives up that first goal.
Yeah, and he's played Montreal twice and he's lost to them twice.
I know, but it doesn't matter. It'll be worse with the fan reaction at home. Whereas Jack Campbell, let him have his first game at home and get the good fan reaction, because no matter what, they'll be fair to him for at least 20 minutes in that game. Because Leaf fans, after 20 minutes, if he gives up a couple bad goals, they'll start booing him too. Don't worry.
Now, the question is whether
we disagree with that, Mike. You didn't.
Oh, they'll boo him if he gives up a bad goal. I mean, Leaf fans are intelligent enough that if he gives up a goal and he doesn't have a chance at it, they're not going to boo him. But if it's a bad goal like the 4th goal last night where he's fumbling,
I think Campbell could even get booed. But I think Campbell will at least.
They'll give him, they'll
give him a little bit benefit of doubt. A little.
Yeah, let's Buffalo fans did not boo Jonas Johansson when he gave up his first goal because it was his first NHL game.
His first game, that's
right, exactly. So I think Leaf fans will be a little more forgiving. Now,
As forgiving as they were to Corey Cross, for sure.
Well, no, sorry, he didn't deserve forgiveness. Neither did Aki Berg, neither did Anders Nielsen, Jurke
They're still
Lumen,
humans, Mike.
and the bunch of crap on the blue line that the Leafs kept feeding their fans.
Mike Komisarek is a nice guy.
I didn't say he wasn't a nice guy. He's just not a good defenseman. So Kyle Dubas, for the second year in a row, has started NHL trade season. Let me just answer this question. Thomas says, is Hutchinson going to be placed on waivers? Once Anderson is healthy, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not going to carry 3 goalies.
No. Because
the cap hit, the cap hit of Hutchinson and Moore and the cap hit of Clifford and Campbell is exact to the dollar. So it washes.
Right.
No, what I was saying was Kyle Dubas started the NHL trade market for 2 years in a row. January 25th was the day that he made the Muzzin deal last year. That was the first big deal. This isn't a blockbuster, but it's a rental deal, and it's also a hockey deal. And the question now is, will this advance the calendar or clock on other teams wanting to make rental deals?
I mean, they killed the goalie market, I think, because they got a goalie they needed. There's not a lot of other teams that need them. Right. They didn't get them for that much. And I think now teams like the Rangers with Georgiev and some other ones may not offer up their goalies now because the return wasn't great. It took another player, and even that return wasn't super fantastic. So I think he bottomed out the goalie market. I do.
Yeah, I mean, let's just say this: there were very few cost-effective backups, and I don't put Georgiev in that category because he's not a backup. I mean, if they trade him,
well, I mean, you have to say he's a backup right now, though.
He's a backup for the Rangers, but what I'm saying is the Rangers their valuation of Georgiev is as a future number 1.
Right.
So they're not going to trade him for Trevor Moore and a couple third-round picks.
Right.
So I think that's more of a summer deal when there's more flexibility. But the Ryan Millers, $1.25 million, or Calvin Pickard or whatever backup out there that's making less than $1 million, that market I think is done. I think it actually kills even more the expensive backups like the Corey Crawfords or Craig Anderson. The only way those guys now get moved is if the teams that they play for eat half the money and there's an injury to a starting goaltender someplace else.
Right. I mean, end of the day, I think that when you look at this deal, Clifford was involved, and we're still talking Trevor Moore in 2/3. Maybe the third turns into a second. So if it's just Jack Campbell on his own, then it's probably the third and the conditional and not Trevor Moore. I mean, that's, and that's why he did bottom out the goalie market. No question about it. I think you might see one other goalie move, but I don't think anybody else has the glaring need that the Leafs did the same exact way. So unless there's an injury real soon, I think that market's done. As far as everything else, it's not like Clifford was a guy in demand. He wasn't. I think the Kings jumped at it because they're looking. Hold on, the Kings jumped at it because they're saving money.
Yes,
they wanted to save money right away, and this saves them money right away now and right away in the future. And I think that's why they jumped at it. And I think they would have jumped at it. It was any franchise. It didn't have to be the Leafs. It was anybody.
I don't think. I mean, obviously. Clifford joked in his availability with the Leafs media is that he wasn't brought in to outpace Austin Matthews.
Right.
He's a worker. He's a third, fourth liner. He's a veteran guy. You're not going to get a ton for that. But I had heard Clifford's name being mentioned because the Kings were obviously going to be sellers. I mean, going back to November. So, and not in connection with the Leafs, but in connection to playoff teams that were looking for that veteran guy. Would the market have gotten any better than a third-round pick? Probably not. That's why they jumped at it. But I think
will also say the Leafs raised the value of Chris Kreider because that's not a play last night that Kreider always makes, but it's one that he can make occasionally. And the fact that, when Justin Hall dropped, tried to cover him.
Yeah.
Once he had a little bit of a head of steam, he got a little bit of an elbow in the face and couldn't hold position. That's something where that's why Chris Kreider is better than Kevin Hayes, and that's why I said he could have more of an impact, because Kevin Hayes is still more of a finesse guy, even with that size, where Kreider is way more physical, and that's showed that.
Yeah, I'll say this right now. Chris Kreider, obviously, I think he's going to get at least a first-round pick and a prospect. But on the Leaf side, you can have Terry Sawchuk in goal. And if you continue to have these brain cramps and vapor locks that they have at certain points during games where they give up 2 goals in 6 seconds, you can have the best goalie in the world and you're not going to win. So they've got to curb that, or they're not making the playoffs. And I think as much as the goaltending has been a problem, their team defense has been an issue, and that it continues.
It's always going to be an issue. And the one thing I told you offline, and this will be the last thing I say about this game, this is what I fully believe with the Leafs franchise. They got a guy that they think might keep 1 goal more out of the net than the previous backup. And the Leafs are so much better if they give up 3 goals than 4. I don't have the stat handy, but just from what I've seen this year, it seems like it's a big deal.
They won, or not won, but points in 10 consecutive games when they're averaging almost 5 goals per game, and Anderson was playing at his top level. That's, then when they started scoring less and the goaltending wasn't as good, that's when they went into their slump. Michael in the chat wants to know what number Clifford will wear, 73, and Campbell will wear 36. Okay, get off this.
I do have breaking news.
Go ahead.
So Shane Gostisbehere is in the lineup tonight.
Okay.
So he missed 10 games after arthroscopic knee surgery, and now he's in the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
This does affect the trade market because if he looks really good, there will be phone calls made to the Flyers to ask about his availability.
Right.
If he doesn't look very good, then the Flyers really do have to just let him recover, play, and get what they can get out of him, and wait until the summer.
Yeah, wait until the summer. On other potential injury returning news, not that he will play, but reports out of St. Louis have Vladimir Tarasenko joining the Blues for their morning skate.
Yeah, he's getting close, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, remember, I believe it was late October that he had the shoulder injury, and they said 5 to 6 months. So he's at least, let's see, remember December, January. Yeah, I mean, he's right now he's 2 months ahead of schedule.
He's also a physical freak, so it would not shock me if he comes back earlier than that.
But this is the thing you have to factor in. I don't know what their cap situation is. I have to look it up on Cap Friendly. But
I mean, I can call Doug Armstrong. Hold on.
Hey, there you go. But Tarasenko on LTIR right now, they can spend that money if he's on LTIR the rest of the regular season. I cannot see them rushing him back. He's $7.5 million. And he's on LTIR. Their cap situation right now is $5.8 million available. That would be eaten up by Tarasenko being activated. Now, obviously, if he's 100% healthy and he's the guy that and he's going to be at the level that he was before the injury, then there's no question there. But I mean, everybody does think that they're looking and they're going to be in the market for another forward. So
yeah, there's no question. I think they will be looking for another forward. I'm not sure who they'll target or what they'll get, but there's no doubt. But right now, it's almost a guarantee Pietrangelo is just going to play through this, and he might just be an own rental. Now, if they came up with a blockbuster deal that threw them back a defenseman and another forward for Pietrangelo, if that's a team that could sign him, is that possible? I think they might entertain it.
Yeah.
They already won the cup, and so they would probably check with Berube and see, do you think you could survive if we got this guy, lost him, and now we're better for next year? Because they did get far, and so it does make you wonder.
And he's locked up. I mean,
right.
We have seen rental for rental trades before, like the San Luis Callahan deal.
But that's because he requested, though.
Sure. Sure, and I can't imagine St. Louis trading Pietrangelo when they have a chance to win a second Stanley Cup.
Weirder things have happened.
Yeah, I mean,
Armstrong is a dealing guy, and so it does make me wonder if it improves their situation down the road, and they feel like it doesn't kill their chances this year.
Yeah,
I think there might be a possibility. It's a remote, but I think it's there.
Okay, the other game last night was Boston-Chicago. It ended up 2-1 Bruins. Was it overtime or shootout?
Overtime.
But
it may not have been an overtime game. So there was a call late in the game with Olli Maatta where he dove and he pushed the puck with the hand and allegedly touched it with his stick, but I never saw it. Keith Jones said he watched it multiple times. He never saw it. And so they called it a hand pass, so Jonathan Toews did not get a goal. I think it was Toews that went in there and got a goal after that play. Because of that play, they said, no, the goal is nullified. And then they lost in overtime because Boston's always going to beat a Chicago in overtime because they have proven guys.
Right.
I don't think Chicago should feel cheated here. I know Jeremy Colleton, got some sort of explanation from the league, whatever. End of the day, a team like Chicago has 4 or 5 guys that you could really look at and say will elevate their play and come through in the end and, win those kinds of games. Boston's got a complete lineup of them. And so that's the difference between like a Chicago and a Boston right now.
Yeah. Just because I only watched a few minutes of this game, but in the few minutes that I did watch, Leonard was standing on his head. And I have to say this. I mean, Stan Bowman would be insane if he decided to extend Corey Crawford and not extend Leonard. Yeah, I mean, I would think that it's almost a no doubter. I mean, with a bad defense, Leonard's save percentage is over .920.
Leonard's the number one. Now,
yeah,
if Leonard somehow gets the Blackhawks in the playoffs, Islander fans are going to be pissed.
Right.
And they have a right to be because, again, Varlamov's been okay. Not bad. Good. But Leonard's been way better than that. And it does make you wonder if he were on the Islanders with their lack of scoring, would they have a better chance?
Right.
I'm thinking they would.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still waiting to see whether Lou will make that move before the deadline and add scoring. I just don't think he will unless he can get it for almost nothing. So I and that just seems to be, I don't know whether it's budgetary constraints or his conservative nature, but I don't know. I don't think the Islanders are somebody who are going to go deep in the playoffs if they don't add the scoring that they're missing. Bob Dracula in the chat asks, any chance of Ryan Strome or Anthony DeAngelo being moved? DeAngelo would be a good trade chip with the young guys coming up.
Well, I kind of wonder who this guy's mummy is, or if his uncle is like Bill Werewolf. But I mean, but as far as the deal. Did you not watch that game? That play DeAngelo made to set up Filipino cannot be made by every defenseman in this league. Yeah. They are not trading this guy. Yeah. Why in the world would they trade him?
Oh. I mean, see, honestly, it's like, okay, unless Gorton is an idiot, which he's not, they're going to buy out Stahl and use the money to pay DeAngelo.
Right, and they're likely to trade Brady Shea in the summer.
Right, which would clear. Now, if they I don't know if they can buy out both Stahl and Brendan Smith.
No, they can't. Brendan Smith will just kind of still be hanging around.
Maybe you know what they might do? Maybe they trade Brendan Smith back to Detroit and have to give Detroit a draft pick to take him off their hands.
Do you think there's any chance in the world Steve Yzerman takes Brendan Smith back?
I'm saying he would get paid for it, Russ.
Doesn't matter. If you know Steve Yzerman, there is 0% chance.
Elias Anderson to take Brendan Smith off our hands.
Mike, you remember all the turnovers there.
I know.
He's not doing that. But going back to Ryan Strome, I don't think they're going to trade him. I think they will legitimately try and sign him, especially if they're losing Kreider.
Yeah.
They are short centers. We don't know if Howden can continually play center in the NHL.
Yeah.
If Hedo's going to turn into a center. Like, there's still some issues at the center position. So Strome, is he living off of Panarin right now? Absolutely, point-wise. But again, I think they're going to have to come to some sort of agreement with him on maybe like a 3-year deal to get him through this, to kind of see where they're at with the center position by year 1 or 2 of that deal. So I think they're going to keep him. Jesper Fast will get traded, and I think he'll get maybe a 2nd-round pick. And so I think that's likely. I think they'll listen to offers for Shea, but I just don't think that'll happen in season because of the money.
I don't believe that the Ryan Spooner, they bought out Spooner. They retained salary on him, because right now they have
they retained salary. They didn't buy him out.
Yeah, they have Girardi and Shattenkirk, so I believe they can buy out one more player.
Right, and that'll be Mark Stahl.
Yeah,
because that's the most money. It's more money than Smith. It makes sense.
Yeah,
you can sign D'Angelo and probably Strome with just a little extra. With Stahl, I mean, it'll be more than a little, but it'll be a couple million extra.
And Brady Shea will be very attractive on the market because he's at 5.2 and locked up for 4 more years.
Right, and he's fast and physical. His decision making hasn't been great in the last 2 years, but neither has the Rangers' defensive coaching either. Yeah. So that's a whole other issue for a whole other day.
Yes, Lindy. Funky is right though in the chat. Shattenkirk.
He's always right, Mike. He's your favorite.
There you go. Shattenkirk's cap hit on the buyout jumps from like 1.4 to over $6 million next year. So,
which is ridiculous, and I still don't understand why in the world they did that.
Yeah,
but he is right, and that's something that I will never understand.
Now, on other injury news, the Sharks announced that Thomas Hertl had successful surgery on Monday. This is strange. It was an ACL MCL tear, and they're saying he is expected to be ready for training camp in September. I would say that's 7 months. I would say that's not going to.
No, I think in this day and age that's possible.
Yeah, that's a little surprising. Now. Continuing on the injury news.
I mean, and remember, if they say a guy's ready for camp and then it lapses for a couple more weeks, right, that happens too.
Continuing on the injury news, Shea Weber was placed on injured reserve this morning.
Yeah.
I guess it was a lower body injury.
Now, fly the Montreal Canadiens flag at half-mast.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like you've got now, and I'm looking at the standings here. Right now, you've got Columbus is in 3rd place in the Metro with 67 points. Florida is in 3rd place in the Atlantic with 64 points. The 2 wild cards are at 66 and 65. You've got Carolina and Toronto at 63. Then there's a 6-point gap between Toronto and Montreal, and then the Rangers and Buffalo after that. I think that 6-point gap is insurmountable.
Yeah, I think it is too.
When you consider it's 8 points behind the wild card, and let's see, 8 points behind the wild card, 7 points behind Florida. I don't see Montreal getting back, and if Weber is going to be out for a week and then probably not up to speed when he gets back, that's a death blow to the Canadiens.
Yeah, I think Patrick Waugh can toast his Stanley Cup ring with the Canadiens for another year. I think it's safe.
Does he do the same thing as the unbeaten Dolphins? And
I don't know for sure, but he might. And
pop open a bottle of champagne and dance on Mario Tremblay's plot, where he's not dead yet, but he probably.
I can't say that for sure, Mike. I don't have firsthand knowledge of it. You never know.
Jeez. But I mean, this is what we're going to be tracking the next 18 days before the deadline on Monday the 24th, is where these teams are and how far they're out of the race, and does that mean that they're going to sell. One of the things that was curious, and not going back on the Toronto page, but just to say this, is that amongst the things that Elliot Friedman referred to in regards to the Leafs was the fact that they've explored the possibility of trading their rentals, of trading Muzzin or Barry. Now, that's most likely not going to happen because they just made a move to add. But if they continue to fall behind, then they have to at least prepare themselves for the eventuality that they would have to do that, because they've traded a lot of draft picks over the last couple years, and they'll probably need to recoup them if, these are guys who are going to probably walk away, and they have to get some of those picks back. But in the East, you're in full sell mode if you're Montreal, if you're the Rangers, and if you're Buffalo. And one good thing from yesterday for the Rangers, Chris Kreider provided proof that he's healthy.
Oh yeah, there's no question about that. That's definitely true. I mean, I do have an exclusive for viewers of this show. Okay. Over the next few days, starting Saturday, I'll be in the Boston area, and I'm going to give Boston Pizza, not Boston Pizza, the fake franchise in Toronto, but the city of Boston, one more chance to prove it to me that pizza is good. And I'm not going by the word of JD Burke because he's Canadian and he doesn't really necessarily know good pizza, but he's going to come along. But I do want to let people know they could go on my Twitter at Sportsology, and if you have a place that is inside of the city, don't give me a place in Cambridge or Winthrop or Chelsea or, Saugerties and if it's inside the city, give it to me and I will probably try one or two of them and report on them. And then this is the last chance because I'm writing an article. I've interviewed 2 prospects recently that love Boston pizza, and I'm going to put those quotes out there. And so it's making me rethink my position on that, just to let you know.
Yeah, I've never had Boston pizza. It's funny because I'm not particularly impressed with Toronto pizza, but I have to say that I have not tried like the local places. I've tried it's like saying I don't like the Buffalo pizza because I had Pizza Hut and it's lousy. It's like I've tried Pizza and some of the other big chains, and I didn't think it was, but I've heard they have great pizza, some of the local places. I'd have to, get some people in Toronto to give me some recommendations.
Right, but I don't want to hear, well, if you just go 25 minutes outside of no.
Downtown, there's
downtown or someplace close on one side of the town or other. That's what I'm looking for.
I go around the block from Yankee Stadium and I get a New York slice that's about twice the size of my head, and it's delicious. So it's okay. Other injury news came out today from Brad Treliving, the Calgary GM, that Mark Giordano is going to be out indefinitely. It's a lower body. He was optimistic in terms of it wasn't a season-ending injury. It wasn't something that would be, obviously it sounds like it's going to be long-term or longer-term than they would like, but not something where he can't come back from it. They were very cagey, but I think
still, this is bad for their playoff hopes.
Right, but and again, this is one of those things where if he broke his leg and he was out for the year, then they could spend the money that he.
Why do you revert?
No, but it's Russ. I'm saying it's the realities of the salary cap. Teams want to replace players if they're hurt.
Well, you're right. Well, the guy, if he just had his eyeball come out of his eye socket,
stop.
Stop.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying I wish he broke his leg, and I'm not saying Calgary Flames.
You just said it.
I said if he had broken his leg and he'd be out the rest of the year and on LTIR, then they could go out and trade for a defenseman with the salary that would have been opened up by him being out for the year. But because he will come back, or because they don't know whether he will come back or not, they are in limbo. So that's the scenario there. And
said they'll play without him, and they've done it before, and they could do it again. TJ, I get it, but you need him right now. You really do.
Yeah, no, and now the one thing with Calgary is that they did open up $4 million in cap space when they traded Frolik to the Sabres. So They do have some room, and they might go out and acquire a stopgap, or a rental. Maybe they would be in on Brendan Dillon. Maybe they would be in on Dylan DeMello from Ottawa if they want to go. Yeah. So if they
replacing Gio, there's just no way around.
And you're gonna have to have the Noah Hannafins and the Brodies and the Hammoniks step up, and you can forget about Brody or Hamonic being traded. It's not happening. Okay, some questions in the chat here, and we're getting a lot of pizza recommendations.
at Sportsology. If you recommend it in the chat room, it's not enough. I'm going to ignore it because I don't even have the chat room up. I can't anymore. So at Sportsology, and then I will gladly take it into advisement. I will talk to JD, and we will let people know where we're going.
Yeah, I mean, when we were in Chicago, we were recommended to go to Giordano's, and that was phenomenal deep dish pizza.
And that wasn't even the one downtown. I had been to the one downtown. This was an offshoot one, right? Remember?
Yeah.
Still fantastic.
It's still fantastic. And there was another place that I know that it was like all the reporters were told to go to two places. One group went to Giordano's. The other one went to a place called, I think it was Pequod's. And
there's another one, though.
There's another one, too. Yeah.
Aldo always trumpets it, and he lives out there. And I've eaten that one. Can't remember the name right this minute, but it's really good, too.
Yeah. All right. Some questions in the chat, and then we will what is Ghost's Richard asks, what is Gostisbehere's value if he proves the knee is healthy? Let's say Calgary as an example.
I would say
Sam Bennett.
Yeah, I think Sam Bennett is definitely a possibility. Now, what's Sam Bennett's contract like?
Under $3 million.
Yeah, so Sam Bennett is a very good one because, again, not knowing what Nolan Patrick will do, Sam Bennett is a good plug for that, and a pick. I think it would be like Sam Bennett and like a second or a third round pick, maybe a conditional of some sort.
Yeah, $2.55 million for Bennett, and he signed for another year. So
right, so that's something where yes, that would be palatable for the Flyers.
And I know that Brian Burke on the Sportsnet broadcast last night, because they were talking about Bennett's availability, he was like, I don't understand why the Flames would trade him. Well, I mean,
because I think the Flames have sort of run the gamut with Sam Bennett, and it's probably better if he goes somewhere else.
Right. Jerkball TO. I would love for the Leafs to move Barry by the deadline. Well,
not happening now.
Not happening. Well, okay. Not happening if they're in the race. If they fall out of the race,
that was a last minute thing.
Right. If they lose 5 in a row, and by the week before the deadline they're 10 points. Yeah, they get passed by Montreal. They get passed by the Rangers. If it's just complete and utter disaster, then you're going to see Barry move, because Barry, I mean, remember, his salary is $2.75 million. Colorado retained 50%. For a team up against the cap, a guy who's a power play quarterback with his skills at that low price, they could reap a really big reward. But they want to make the playoffs, so I don't think that's going to happen.
Right.
Peter Frenna in the chat asks, what is Kreider's value? Are the Avs serious contenders? Peter, I saw Colorado against Buffalo, and I know Buffalo right now, with the exception of Eichel and Reinhart, is pretty much an AHL team the way they're playing.
Yeah.
But there is such depth there on the blue line and at forward. I mean, you got the McKinnon line, you got Rantanen was really good. Kadri was good. Burakovsky. I mean, I don't know if they need. I don't know if they need Kreider, but they have so much cap room that why not put the cherry on top of the sundae and go.
They're not going to trade Connor Timmins for Kreider. They're not. No. They just won't be able to get that.
Right.
But could they get Comfer? I don't know, because he's a center for them. But if they got somebody comparable to that value, the Rangers would probably listen, and they would probably listen. But you're not getting anybody like Zadorov. You're not getting anybody, so it's going to limit them a little bit as to who you might get. You're not getting Tyson Jost. So, but I still think they have guys to trade. I do.
Yeah, I don't think that I don't think they want to. I think they would trade a Newhook. I think they'd trade somebody like that.
No, Newhook's starting to get hot in college. I don't think they would trade him for a rental.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, you want somebody with years on his deal.
Hold on. I'm looking right now. Just because, it's hard to always have a catalog of prospects in the head, but I know them. As an example, if they wanted to put in a draft pick and Drew Hellison from last year's draft, a good defenseman, played with the NTDP, that may be something they'd listen to the Rangers. If they wanted to put in, Here's a good one. Could they at this point get Martin Kaut?
I was just going to say that.
Maybe. So maybe like someone like that, then it would probably, go Martin Kaut and like a fourth or something.
Okay. Esmir asks, would the Devils trade any of their players within the division at the deadline? Yes.
Yes, they're going to trade Andy Green. They're going to trade
Bodman.
I don't know if they're trading Simmons. If you ask me, gun to the head, I'm going to say no. I don't think they're going to trade Palmieri. I just have a feeling it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to trade anybody with term, but the thing is, they could okay, Simmons is a UFA.
Miles would play for the Sioux. Maybe the Leafs would take him.
There you go.
I'm kidding.
Simmons wants to stay, he says. He wants to be part of the – okay. He didn't – and apparently did not like being traded from Philadelphia to Nashville last year. It was not a good experience for him. But the problem is that if he wants to come back, then why not trade him and then sign him in the summer?
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
he's either going to have to sign an extension, and believe me, he's not going to get $5 million coming off the year that he's having right now. It'd probably have to be significantly less. If he agrees to an extension before the deadline, then okay, you keep him. But if he doesn't, and he's just paying lip service of I want to stay in New Jersey, then you trade him and say, okay, we'll talk to you on July 1.
Yeah.
Your favorite Funky Cold Zadina asks, which playoff team could use Luke Glendening the most? The Oilers? No, the Oilers need somebody who brings
I think Iska in the KHL. No, Luke Glendening's a great guy. I think a guy like Luke Glendening might go to somebody like, if the Blackhawks are in it, I think they would take a guy like Glendening. He doesn't make a ton of money, and they would retain half. I think the Flyers might listen to a guy like Glendening as a rental. Again, if they retained half, I think trying to think who else. I think a team like Winnipeg might listen to a guy like Glendening to sort of give him that little extra grit and experience.
Sure.
So I think teams like that, I think Glendening, but he's not going to bring in a ton.
Yeah. No, probably third, fourth round pick.
Third, fourth rounder.
Yeah, he's going to get about the same. He's not the same player as Clifford. He'll get the same kind of return.
But I will feel good for Luke Glendening because he was clearly tortured when I interviewed him this year, early in the season with the Red Wings, and they asked him, I think they had just lost like 10 in a row or something like that, and the look on his face and the answer just told me he is in pain, and it'll be nice to see him out of pain.
And he's got another year at $1.8 million. So
he has another year, so he could be attractive. That could be a third round pick for sure.
Yeah. Last question from CJ Scoots. Any chance Carolina looks for an upgrade in net, or are they going to bet on Mrazek?
I mean, I think they're betting on Mrazek, and only because Reimer showed them glimpses of things he couldn't do the last couple of years for some other team. I can't remember who that was. That
I have no idea.
That I think they're going to go status quo. I know it's popular to say they should get one in case Mrazek goes bad, but I think they have a belief in Reimer now. So I think Carolina will make moves, but I don't think it'll be in net.
Yeah, I think with the loss of Dougie Hamilton, they're probably going to go after a defenseman to,
I mean, they could bring up Jake Bean, but maybe they don't want to. But
yeah, it's from what I heard, they don't think he's ready yet.
Okay. I know Hayden Fleury's playing a lot.
Yes, but I would think it'd be easier to get an improvement in net than to get a defenseman that has years on his contract. But we'll see. We have lots to talk about. We'll be back.
I mean, you get Justin Williams. That's an addition.
That is true. We will be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast.
I'm going to wear gray tomorrow.
And I don't know what I'm going to do. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Gray Agello. Thank you for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.